All right. Good morning. Welcome to the Rise and Grind Morning Show. It is Tuesday, May 14th, just after 8 a.m., 8:06 a.m. Joined here by Eric Rintamaki, and we're going to recap a little bit about what we learned last night about Mathieu Betts. And, of course, Giovani Manu was the highlight of the hour last night. And then we've got some big news to share. You know, of course, everyone knows about the Jared Goff contract. We've got a schedule release that's supposed to pop out here in the next 24 hours. So we're going to have a busy day between today and tomorrow. I had a schedule leak yesterday. I'm still hoping that it reigns true. I've never been let down. So anytime that I've used a source, it's usually always come true. In this case, we've already learned that the Cowboys are slated to play Cleveland week 1. So we can check that off the box. There's still potential, outside chance that the 49ers get matched up with the Lions. But either way, if it doesn't happen, the 5 primetime games is what I'm most excited about. At least that part of it, I'm hoping still reigns true. Whether we get slated in that first week against the 49ers or not, we'll see. But man, like I said yesterday, that would be a complete banger of an opening week with the way they've got these games already scheduled. And they're doing slow leaks. So the NFL's putting out a few games here or there to kind of get everybody, prepped and primed and ready to roll for the schedule release tomorrow. Which was supposed to be the 12th, backed it up to the 15th. So good morning, Eric. How you doing today?
Oh, fantastic. Still a little tired from last night. I stayed up and watched the show again, listened to it. It was awesome. Loved it.
Yeah, Paul Orazzetti, man. What a great individual to have on as far as insight for the Canadian Football League. Obviously worked closely with Giovani Manu, had a lot of great things to say about Manu. I really enjoyed his context and his perspective. He emailed me a couple of times last night after the show, and I invited him obviously to join me, at a game this fall. Looking forward to that, and just kind of learning more about the Canadian Football League. So I think we both kind of learned last night, Eric, that there might be more happening here with the Canadian Football League, and he mentioned something last night that I guess I didn't understand was happening within football. I mean, I know that there's been a regression in the States a little bit, but I guess I confirmed that locally, like with my own high schools or, schools my kids attended, with player levels. Like there's not as many football players anymore, whether it's due, like he mentioned, to the CTE thing and the concussion thing. And then, of course, COVID, kind of ruined a couple of years for people. That maybe we don't have enough football players in the funnel as we used to. And that's why you're seeing great GMs like Brad Holmes reaching to every crevice possible to find players to fit to this team and give us the best fighting chance to snag the best players available, no matter where they play. What do you got to think about that? And the fact that maybe there's a little bit of a regression with, player availability now.
Yeah, and I found it really interesting what he was saying about the other countries that are getting football. He said there's like 100 and something programs over in Japan, and then he's been to China and Europe. So football's spreading all over the place. So we might get a pool where we get a Japanese player or a Chinese player in the NFL soon, which would be awesome. I think it'd be great to have players from all over the world. We lost you there, Will. Oh, there,
no,
now you're back.
I was giving you your highlight, man. Giving you your highlight for a minute. So I think that's absolutely incredible that, the sport has grown, across the pond, so to speak. And I think Germany right now is one of the fastest growing populace for football. And that's why, the sport is really growing over there. The NFL's, trying to pick up a lot of games in Europe. And we have our first game, I think, this year in Brazil. Man, that would have been an awesome game to attend. I'm not going to attend a game like that unless the Lions are in it. From what we understand, though, there won't be any international games again this year for the Lions, which they haven't played in, I believe, 13 years or so now overseas. So it's been a while. Last night, like I said, I learned a ton, not just about Giovani, Manu, but two bets. And we'll get into some more of this, but he really spoke highly of bets. And his email to me last night was literally, don't sleep on bets. He's a very good player. And I kind of shot him back the video that I did on mid-two bets. And I said, well, I hope I did him justice, because when I watched him and watched his highlights and looked at it from a scout perspective, a greenhorn, at that, I saw a guy that flashed much better speed than anybody else around him. And not only that, violent hands, and somebody that put his hands in the right place, but he just bulldozed guys that are much bigger than him. I remember specifically that there was a left tackle that he went up against that he completely just bulldozed the guy. I mean, the guy had to be 6'7", 6'8", big guy. Don't know who he is, but Betts really shined to me. He really showed an elusiveness and creativity with his ability on the field to get to the quarterback. Clearly, it showed up in the stat line last year: 18 sacks, and voted the most outstanding player in Canadian football. So, got a little bit to get to this morning. First, we'll start with the dust is kind of settled. Jared Goff rounds out the massive contract frenzy this offseason for Detroit. Overall, Detroit has extended 8 players for a total of approximately $487 million in total contracts, with $350 million in total guarantees. This is all according to Spotrac. The shocking part is the Lions have spent massive money on just 3 players. And those are going to be the 3 players we're going to talk about this morning. But before we do that, let's welcome in the chat this morning. Good morning, Tracy. We got Randy P in the house. Who else do we have in here? We got Chef Talks Lions all the way from Australia. Decker Becker, good morning. The Beast Moderator. That's an interesting one. New one, welcome in. And who else do we have in here today? We got Casey in the house. We got a little bit of a light crew today. Where's everybody hiding today? It's Tuesday, man. You guys know we're here. Let's do it. All right, so let's talk about all these contracts. So my first question would be, what is your initial thoughts on all of the extensions that the Lions have handed out this offseason, primarily and now including, in that conversation, Jared Goff is now the Detroit Lions quarterback for the next 5 seasons, and they've really secured 3 positions, top positions at that, for the long term. What are your initial thoughts on all these deals the Lions are handing out?
I love it. First of all, quarterback is your most important position on the entire team, single position. So locking up our quarterback, we got better, we didn't get worse, right? So you take Penei Sewell and St. Brown, 2 kids that we brought in through the draft, and instead of paying high, overpriced people that are just here to get a bag, free agents, we signed some of our own. So we did the exact opposite of what the Bears are currently doing. The Bears currently just blew their wad on bringing in all these free agents, just like the Redskins did back in the 90s. And then they drafted a quarterback. And they think that that's going to be the be-all, end-all and save their team. I think it's going to have the opposite effect. And this is homegrown now. We're treating our own players with respect, and our players that get drafted here or that are free agents that come here, like Goff, that do their due diligence and put in the work, they are going to get paid. They're the ones that the Lions are going to take care of them if they do what they need to do. Don't complain. Be a good soldier. Do your job.
So, I mean, I would agree that it's nice to finally see that the Lions, sorry, I'm kind of typing at the same time. It's kind of hard to type and think and talk all at once, but I did it. It's nice to see that we are signing our own guys. And that's something that Brad Holmes has spoke to quite a bit, in his time here in Detroit, that it's important to see the guys that you draft, one, turn out to be great ball players, and then two, deserve it of massive contracts, or, what were at one point the largest contracts at that time. I think it speaks volumes to the developmental team that the Lions have, the coaching staff. If you don't have good coaches, I don't care how good the player is that you bring in through the draft. If they don't develop them and help them, turn into and nurture their path through the NFL and allow them to get better in every facet of the game, it doesn't matter, 4 years later, if they're on the bubble or not, or one of the best or not. If you don't develop them the right way, you won't have the confidence to retain these guys. And clearly, Brad Holmes, Dan Campbell, Ray Agnew, all of the big time players involved in this have the confidence in these players. And I think that their play on the field speaks for themselves. Jared Goff has been one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL for the last 2 seasons. Amon-Ra St. Brown has been a top 3 wide receiver in the NFL for the last, 2.5 seasons. Penei Sewell has been a top right tackle in this league almost since day one he entered the league. But I would say at least the last 2 seasons plus 14 games, he's probably been the best right tackle in the league. And he was paid as such. So last month, the Lions locked in wide receiver Amon-Ra St. Brown on a 4-year extension, $120 million in new money that also contains $77 million in total guarantees. Earning more than $30 million per year on this 4-year extension, it did make St. Brown the highest paid wide receiver in terms of annual average at that time. Well, within a matter of hours, maybe a day, that kind of disappeared. But the $77 million in guarantees was the highest among all wide receivers, leapfrogging Cooper Kupp's $75 million that was just handed to him probably 2021, I think was the year that he got extended. And then the Eagles, like I said, it kind of disappeared quickly. Inked A.J. Brown, who recently signed a 3-year, $96 million contract extension with the Eagles, who now tops the list as the highest paid wide receiver at $32 million APY. Look, the Lions were doing the right thing, right? They wanted to make Amon-Ra St. Brown the highest paid wide receiver. I still feel, and I mentioned this last night, that, yeah, we overpaid, in my opinion, but I don't know how you can overpay at the same time, knocking my own judgment for a guy that really exudes everything that this team is about and has performed at such a high level. His character is off the charts. His work ethic is off the charts, bar none, probably one of the hardest working receivers in the NFL. And that type of energy and commitment to your craft, hopefully, is going to spill over to guys like Jameson Williams and the rest of this team to kind of earn it, right? Pave their way, work for it, go get it. You're not going to get anything in this league unless you go and work for it. And Amon-Ra St. Brown does that, and he does it at such a high level. What was your overall reaction to Amon-Ra St. Brown's, extension announcement? What were your first thoughts? What are you thinking now? Where does it fit for you now as a Lions fan?
I loved it. I'm like, yes, we're locking up our own guy. We have him for another 4 years. No one else can have him. In my opinion, he is top 5 in wide receivers we've ever had for the Lions. Maybe top 2 or 3. I was there for his very first game against the San Francisco 49ers, and him and Khalif Raymond were warming up together, and watching the way that they warmed up and were throwing the ball back and forth to each other. And he was like a sponge. He was following Khalif Raymond everywhere he went and learning from a pro. And I really believe that Khalif helped him in his development along the way. And you could tell he stayed before the game, or he was out there before the game doing all this stuff, doing all these drills. After the game, back out doing it again. And the kid just never stops. It reminds me of hearing about like Jerry Rice doing all these crazy drills, after practice and before practice, and all the stuff he would go through. So it's nice to see someone with a work ethic that is paying off on the field. And never did I imagine in my wildest dreams watching this kid that we drafted in the 4th round at his very first game. And I don't even think he got a catch. He might have had one ball thrown his way. He didn't even hardly play in the game, but was watching the entire game from the sideline. He was involved. He was there. He's looking at the pads, and never once was he staring off into the crowd or putting his head down or anything like that. Because it took 6-8 games before he really started rolling and getting a role on the team. He had to earn that trust with Jared Goff, and to see the kid come from that to what he is now, oh my God, what an amazing Lion!
Yeah,
just he epitomizes what Dan Campbell wants a Lion to be. And I am so proud that Sheila Hamp, Brad Holmes, and Dan Campbell took out the checkbook and paid this kid, because now anyone, Antoine Green, 7th round, it doesn't matter what round you are taken in. If you put in the work and you make this team, you will get paid. Because the bottom line is they all want to get paid, right? It doesn't matter if you're an undrafted free agent, a 7th rounder, a 4th rounder, a 1st rounder, they all eventually want to get paid. And the transition in the NFL for a lot of these guys is way too much. So having a kid like St. Brown that proves, doesn't matter what round you're drafted in, it really helps not only for him, but for anyone else that we bring in. So our 4th rounders this year, who are they? Vaki it was Manu and was it Manu and Vaki? The 2 that we traded up for in the 4th round?
I think Vaki was 3rd round.
Third round.
Yeah. So I mean, I think you're spot on here that it speaks volumes to the type of energy that the kid brings. Amon-Ra St. Brown has really set the stage for anybody that's entering the NFL. That if you develop the work ethic, you put forth the right effort and positive attitude, the sky's the limit. But to have this type of work ethic, it doesn't come easily to many people. I would say that in today's day and age, work ethic, I think it's kind of gone by the wayside. There's very few people that are really wanting to work for everything that they get in life. And you see it now with guys that have joined this team that Amon-Ra St. Brown wanted to be the best. He held his list close to his heart, right? I mean, he's got his little black book. He's got his list every single day. He's putting something in there. Every year he puts in his goals, and he'll never share what those, all of those goals are with everybody. But you bet your bottom dollar he wanted to beat out every single wide receiver that was selected before him, and he did. So moving on to the next Detroit Lion that was extended this offseason. The Lions locked up Penei Sewell, right tackle, or converted left tackle to right tackle. 4-year extension, $112 million in new money, $85 million in guarantees. Ranks him as the highest paid right tackle in the NFL currently, and the 3rd overall highest paid tackle in the league, right or left tackle. So then the Lions kicked off Monday by signing Jared Goff to a 4-year, $212 million extension with $170 million all in new money. We have not seen the breakdowns yet as to what the cap will look like for 2024 and beyond as it pertains to the total contract breakdown. But based on the numbers, Goff will earn an average of $49 million APY based over the next 5 seasons and $53 million APY in 2025 and beyond. We just don't know how it's going to break down. And I'm hoping those details will come out today. And if it does, we'll try to put a video together and get it out so that we can really explain the impact on the Lions cap situation for the future. But this makes him the 2nd highest paid quarterback in the league behind only Joe Burrow. So we back up to Penei Sewell here. And again, another Samoan kid comes into the league, first pick ever by Brad Holmes. And he's still with us. He is somebody that developed, both positions, left and right tackles. One of the best to do it early on when he had to take over for Taylor Decker. Held his own, never skipped a beat. But he really fell in love with this right tackle position. He's really grown and developed his skills. He's even caught a first down for the Detroit Lions, which was a critical play I could only imagine if he dropped about 60 pounds, would he be a viable tight end in the league? Hey, I wouldn't be surprised. I honestly wouldn't be surprised one bit that he could do it. He's got immense skill, very soft hands, light on his feet. So I'm super excited to see that the Lions are kind of following their own advice, right? You come into the league, you work hard, you work for it, you're going to get paid. We want to keep you. We want you to remain a Detroit Lion. But here is another high character guy, a leader, someone who's been a leader on this team now for a few seasons. Definitely a vocal leader. You see the videos in the highlights of him before games, getting everybody together and getting them riled up. Penei Sewell is probably one of the best stories that I've really seen in the NFL in a long time, and just how he's grown as an individual. When I listened to his press conference and what he had said about remaining the Detroit Lion, that, this is his family. This is all he knows in the NFL. Very similar to what Giovani Manu is kind of going through right now as well, but which we'll get into some more information here on Gio in just a minute. But Penei Sewell, man, going to continue to lock down the right side of this offense until and if that day comes that Taylor Decker is no longer a Lion, will he switch to the left side? Something tells me he probably will. I believe that it is in the cards, especially with a contract of this magnitude, making him one of the highest paid tackles ever and closely one of the highest paid left tackles. I mean, he's only in third place. That there is that potential. I'm sure that conversation was had, or maybe it was had. I can't say definitively that, hey, there could be a day that you're going to be a left tackle. What do you think about that? If Taylor Decker retires or if he's not extended for whatever reason, are you willing to go back to the left side? Can you do it again? I don't know how easy of a transition that would be this late in the stage. I would assume that, he's a consummate pro and that was his natural position coming out of college, that maybe it wouldn't be a difficult transition for him. But that option is always there. So what do you think about Penei Sewell remaining a Lion? Let me guess, you love it.
Oh, I do. And there's one thing that's not spoken about Penei Sewell or Amon-Ra St. Brown, and that's they are turning into player coaches. They can help bring along any rookie. What's the first thing that Penei Sewell said when Manu got drafted? I'm going to take this kid under my wing. Mm-hmm. Got a hold of him right away, called him right away. First, I think it was the first Lion to call Manu was Penei Sewell, another Samoan brother. And the way he's going to be able to help bring along new talent is incredible, because he'll be able to tell them from a player's perspective what the coaches want, what they're looking for, and any questions that Manu has, he can throw them off Penei Sewell. What a big, giant fountain of knowledge that he can have at any time. Where not necessarily he can't go to the head coach at 2:00 in the morning, but he can send Penei Sewell a text and say, "Hey, what should I do on this play? I saw something at practice yesterday." So he can throw stuff off him anytime. It's going to be awesome, and I love that about Penei Sewell and St. Brown, that they're already taking the other person under their wing and helping them out and being player coaches. That's something that doesn't get talked about with them very much.
Yeah, it's a great point. Penei has definitely taken, Manu underneath his wing. I mean, they're from different parts, right? Tonga and Samoa, both Polynesian descent. I did ask that question last night to Paul, about the Polynesian players and is there a difference? Is there a defining difference? And I guess what I've noticed personally, and I asked Paul kind of the same question is, why does it seem like the Polynesians end up being some of the better football players? Like, what is it about them and their culture that helps them to overcome a lot? And it's really about their culture and how, and I'm not like Paul said, I don't claim to know everything about the Polynesian culture, but they're very, how do I put it? They're very committed. When they set their mind to do something, they're going to do it. When they make a promise, they're going to follow through on it. And that's what you saw just about Manu. I mean, Manu made a promise to his family. He left at 11 years old to a different country to go play football. All right. To go learn in a different country. He had no family outside of his sister and his aunt. And now he's made good on his promise to give his family a better way of life. And he stuck through that, through all of the hardship that kid had faced throughout college and in his younger years. He made good on his promise. So there's a lot to dive in on Manu, and I'm sure we're going to learn a lot more as the seasons roll on. There's going to be a lot more information. I'm hoping to get that one-on-one. I think Paul had mentioned that he's going to try to reach out to Manu again and see if we can't get Manu on. I want to learn more about this guy. I really do. I love his story. It's an incredible story. And if you guys didn't catch last night's live with Paul Orazzetti, former UBC recruiter and coach, now at Salt College there in Canada. Just an excellent guest, wealth of football knowledge, knows a lot about these guys and the potential for these guys. So he made a comparison last night. I know I'm getting off now. I'm not even getting into golf yet. He made a comparison last night about Division II college kind of being that bar. When you look at Canadian Football League, Division II in the States would be equivalent to kind of the Canadian Football League. So when you look at those players, and I came up with this stat yesterday, 4% of the NFL is Division II or Division III players. Only 4%. So roughly 70 guys a year from Division II football are on an NFL team in the top 53. So keep that in mind. Giovani Manu is a rare individual in the NFL. So that speaks a lot about his ability to play, and so is Mathieu Betts. Now, not only is there only 4% of these players in the NFL, but the Lions have 2 of them. So I think that's incredible that, Brad Holmes has found these guys and is bringing them into, a new set, a new system that they're going to learn from and hopefully grow and continue on. So let me check back in the chat. And this morning, Eric, if you see any good comments or anything, please just pull them aside and let's talk about them. So,
yeah, I saw a good one, but I want to include it in that little thing I'm going to do here in a little bit.
Yeah, so Chef Talks Lions wants to talk about international football. We'll bring that up on a show one of these days. Obviously, you'll be involved in that one. Where was that question I just saw? Will Scott says, I like Goff, St. Brown, and Sewell, but it's now Super Bowl or bust. We have paid these players the money. I'm hoping it translates to a Super Bowl. I think that's everybody's want and wish, but I will tell you, a lot of players get paid in this league, and they get paid big time, and they never win a Super Bowl. That's just the way it goes. Contracts are contracts, and just because they get paid doesn't mean that they're going to win a Super Bowl. And I hope that we don't confuse the two too much, that just because we pay somebody means that we're going to have the best team, that we're going to have the best record, that we are going to win a Super Bowl. I think what it means is the Lions found the best guy for them and for their team and for their situation, and they went ahead and paid that player to keep that player around. I think the Super Bowl translation kind of gets lost in contracts. And I'm not picking on you, Will. I'm just utilizing what your statement is to kind of give my opinion on it, because I've seen it a lot. There's a lot of reactions that came out that Eric will talk about here in a minute, but a lot of reactions that came out about these contracts. And I guess my initial reaction was, yeah, I felt we overpaid Amon-Ra St. Brown. And I think the large majority of fans were like, wow, it's done. It's awesome. It's exciting. Amon-Ra St. Brown's the best, wide receiver. Same thing with Penei Sewell. Almost an exact reaction. Wow, that's incredible. Penei Sewell's going to be a Lion forever. And no one cared about the money side of it, or at least what I saw. And then Jared Goff, different story. Totally different story. Reaction's not so great. And I don't get it, especially when, you have a guy that is one of the best, quarterbacks in the league right now and has been. It's hard enough to be one of the best quarterbacks in the league for 1 year, but to do it for 2 years in a row. And by the way, he's only had a losing season twice in his career. The last 7 games of his rookie year and his first year as a Detroit Lion. So what I would say is the guy's a winner, and he's got some of the best stats in the league to go along with it. One of the most winningest quarterbacks in the league today, and has some of the most wins in the playoffs and Super Bowl appearance. So I think we're darn lucky to have a quarterback like Jared Goff. I don't care how much it costs to keep the guy around. We've always said it is easy to get worse at quarterback than it is to get better. Let's see here. Rick says Hooker is Goff's backup unless someone offers Holmes an offer he can't refuse. That debate ended yesterday. I'm glad that debate ended, to be honest with you. There's been, look, I'm excited about Hendon Hooker. I mean, you guys know me. I wanted Hendon Hooker on this team. He was one of the picks that I made last year that I got right. I wanted him on this team. I thought he was the best quarterback not named CJ Stroud in the draft. And to be able to pick him up after the first round was going to be a complete steal. I'm excited to see where he grows. But we also have to remember where he came from, the offense he came from, the school that he came from, and how they ran that offense was very odd. It's one of the most difficult offenses to translate to the NFL. The good thing is Hendon Hooker's got a pretty decent head on his shoulders, and he has all the intangibles, the work ethic. He's got a great arm. I think he's going to develop well. And we want a winner behind Goff. Absolutely. Because if Goff goes down, we need somebody like Hendon Hooker to be able to come in and win us a game or two or three until our quarterback can get back behind center. So, don't sell yourself short on Hendon Hooker. But at the same time, I don't think that there was ever a debate inside the locker room of who was going to be the quarterback this year. I don't think there was ever a debate about that. And now there won't be. So anyway, to finish this off on Goff here, like I said, the Lions kicked off Monday by signing him to that 4-year extension, $212 million, $170 million in new money. Like I said, we haven't seen the breakdowns yet. And based on the averages, it's somewhere between 49 and 53 million a year. A week ago, I claimed that there was no way Jared Goff would be paid less than Kirk Cousins. And that obviously remained true. And I'm excited for Jared Goff to be one of the highest paid quarterbacks in the NFL. But the question is, how does this affect the future Lions and cap space? Future Lions meaning players that we can bring in, players that we're going to sign that are currently on the team and extend. We have now 3 positions that currently will count for $111 million of the projected $280 million in 2025 cap space, leaving the Lions with just $169 million to spread over the 48 players that round out the top 51, which is an average of $3.52 million per player. So that's the question. How do you feel this will affect the future? I've heard this question a lot. I've seen it all over social media, in this chat, on my shows. People said if we paid these guys, there was no way we were ever going to be a team or a complete team, and it was going to scuttle the team. So my question to you now today is, how do you really feel this is going to affect the future?
Well, I personally think that Brad Holmes is playing chess while everyone else is playing checkers, because now you look at Jordan Love, you look at Dak Prescott, you look at all these quarterbacks, Tua, that want bigger, better contracts than what Goff got. Oh, I'm better than Goff. I need a bigger contract than Goff. So it's going to force all these teams to pay $57-60 million a year to their players, and they're going to have a left tackle that they have to pay. They're going to have a wide receiver or 2 wide receivers like the Eagles that they're going to have to pay. Look at the Eagles. They got 2 of them that are in the top 5 of what wide receivers are getting paid. So I believe that we're going to be just fine. Brad is going to figure out a way to make it work. He has to have a plan. There's no way that he goes into this with no plan and just goes willy-nilly. Oh, I'm just going to give everybody all this money and we'll figure it out later. No, that's not the way he works. He's got it all figured out. He knows what the cap is going to go up. He knows what contracts are expiring, what players are expendable, what players can come in. Now, may that hurt us for one season here or there where we can't get some big high-price free agent? Fine.
Which we don't do.
Yeah, and we don't do it anyway. We don't bring in any more Trey Flowers or these guys that, break the bank and then don't do anything, and we have a bunch of dead cap money for them. We don't do that. The dead cap for the Lions over the next 10 years, I believe, will be way less than most other teams. because we're retaining our players. We're not just letting people go on contracts that sucked. You know, a lot of the contracts that Brad Holmes is doing now have void years in them. So we get rid of a lot of that.
So you spoke of, you spoke a dead cap there, and that's a great point. When Brad Holmes took over this team, we had close to $65 million in dead cap. Yep. That's a huge number. We had more in dead cap than available cap to even spend. So they've completely transformed this team, not only with cap space, but the type of players they're bringing in, right? Drafting really good, in bringing in players that normally wouldn't start and starting them. And then players that are starting that are turning out to be pretty damn good football players. When you look at a dead cap situation, this year we're at 23 million. Prior to, the offseason starting, that number was close to 2 million. And the only reason why there was more dead cap, obviously some players were released and, that obviously hit the cap. Tracy Walker, I think, accounted for 5 million of that. And a few other players that had void years, that were this year that obviously attributed to the dead cap. So it's not as bad of a number as what you think, but coming from 65 million and then reducing that to around 30 million in 2022. And then I think it was close to 20 million in 2023, 25 million in 23. And that number's even dropped a little bit this year. And it was actually really low, like I said, until, we released some players. So the dead cap that we have now is because of the moves that Brad Holmes has made and because of some of the players that were on this team prior to Brad Holmes taking over and Dan Campbell taking over that have now pretty much been released. I think we're down to just a few players now that were on the original roster in 2020. I haven't looked at that again, but I will at some point get those numbers. And then obviously Cam Sutton, that was a huge hit to the cap that we're supposed to get back some of that money post June 1. Just don't know how much it's going to be. So right away, a couple of questions here. Tracy had asked, when do these cap hits start coming in? We know this for sure, Tracy, that in 2025, you can bet that these cap numbers are going to hit. I don't know how these contracts are completely constructed at this point. So I think that Amon-Ra and Penei Sewell's numbers are out there, and they're full. Like we know what the cap hits are going to be throughout their contract. Jared Goff's could be a little bit different. We don't know. I mean, our cap space went down from 25 million down to like just south of 6. So if we just spent 20 million in signing bonus money, then I think that kind of gives us an answer of where this money is going to go. But I have no doubt that Brad Holmes will find us more cap space back in the spring. Early part of the spring, I did a video that Frank Ragnow was one contract that may be renegotiated. That still hasn't happened that we know of. And then there's Taylor Decker. They were already talking about a Taylor Decker extension. So if that happens, you could see more cap space become available as well. And seeing, Taylor Decker stay with this team for a few more seasons. But Frank Ragnow, I mean, he's the wild card right now. We just don't know how much longer he's going to be able to play. There was another question here. Where'd it go? Jaster says, eventually someone isn't going to get paid and we have to let good players go. That is a great problem to have. It's the nature of the beast with all of the high contracts. Have to keep drafting great throughout. So I would agree with that. And someone else also made that same comment. Will Scott says the Lions raise the bar when it comes to the salaries for future NFL quarterbacks. And Tracy, of course, wants to see how well Hendon Hooker does in preseason. And Brent says if that's the case, Brad Holmes will have to keep drafting great. All great statements. And I think that that's my statement. How does this affect the future for the Lions? Coming back to that question. We are now going to live inside the draft. You have to. Brad has done an excellent job. We are going to have to live on these low-priced free agents. Well, guess what? That's Brad Holmes' MO. Right now, Carlton Davis is accounting towards 15 million of this cap, right? That will probably drop off next year. If we don't extend Carlton, which I don't see happening, even if he has a really good season, I think because of the way that Brad Holmes drafted this year, I don't think that Carlton is part of the future. I think that Ennis Rakestraw and Tyrion Arnold are going to be the 1-2 punch. Give them a season to grow, and then next year they're going to get the keys to the room. So I think that Carlton will probably drop off in 25. That will give us $15 million back in cap space. That's a big bump, especially when you just handed out a lot of this money, to 3 players. When I look at the number of 169 million to spread over 48 players and 3.5 million, on average per player, well, let's talk about Aiden Hutchinson. So is Aiden Hutchinson worth an elite contract today? Probably not. Is he worth an elite contract for the Detroit Lions? Probably. I think that's the difference. I think that Aiden is a consummate pro. I think that he exudes everything that Amon-Ra St. Brown and Penei Sewell and Jared Goff do as well. I think that he is a solid leader, and he continues to grow more as a vocal leader on this team. His work ethic is bar none, some of the best in the business. So I do believe that he will remain a Lion. The question is, are they going to be able to find the money to pay him a $25 to $30 million contract when the time comes? Or are they going to have to limp him with the franchise tag? I hope that Brad Holmes is not afraid to use the franchise tag. I hope that doesn't sway his decision one way or the other, because oftentimes the franchise tag is viewed as a negative. And what that kind of does with your player, from all of the reading we've done over many, many, many years of watching and learning about the NFL, is it really pisses off the players. And I think that's the last thing you want to see happen with Aiden Hutchinson, is that he gets, I'm a bad egg kind of feel, and they didn't invest in me like they did Amon-Ra or Penei Sewell or Jared Goff, and kind of feel slighted. I hope that doesn't happen. But then again, I think that Brad needs to utilize all the tools in his tool belt. And if it becomes a decision of can't extend you this year because of money, that Aiden would understand that. Not to say that that's going to happen. I mean, we are still a couple of seasons away. Aiden's entering his 3rd season. So after this year, contract negotiations can begin with Aiden Hutchinson. And I would expect that, that deal will probably get done after his 4th season. When I look at the contracts right now, I would say that probably makes the most sense. The big hits from Amon-Ra St. Brown, Penei Sewell, and Jared Goff are going to kind of fall off by 2026. And that's, again, without seeing where Jared's money is going to line up. But I can assume that when you talk about the funnel, right, in roster roulette, that's where it makes sense. 2026 makes sense for an Aiden Hutchinson contract negotiation and getting him an extension. We'll just have to see how well he grows. And again, I think this is going to be a huge growth year for Aiden with this defensive line, and now having a defensive backfield behind him that should be, more than confident to get the job done. Fan reactions by Eric. So Eric, you had come across some fan reactions. And then after that, I'd like to go into Paul Orizzetti's conversations about Manu and Mathieu Betts coming up next.
So the fan reactions have been everything from super positive to super negative. And I'll just read a few and let you go off of them. Okay. So the first one, they could have signed Hooker to a deal for a hell of a lot cheaper. Goff going to go on the IR now that he got paid. So
Hold
now,
on.
yeah.
I don't want to know. Don't release any names of who said this.
No. I won't. This is all anonymous from Facebook. Yeah.
This just sounds like a very unintelligent football watcher, I guess, because Hooker's already under contract. He's on a rookie contract. So why would you sign Hooker to a bigger deal that hasn't played a snap in the NFL? I mean, so how does that make any sense?
Yeah.
It makes zero sense.
It really does. All right, we'll do a rapid fire here. Here's the next one. So this is a little better, okay? I will never understand or identify with people who live only to complain. Jared Goff has proven his worth despite all the armchair analysts, and proven he's worth his contract, just as St. Brown is worth his contract. Misery is a choice. So that one's a little better. All right. And then here's the next one. Holmes and Campbell have improved every year in spite of fan criticism. I'm okay with every move they make until they give me reason to doubt. Go Lions. All right, here's the next one. Agree or disagree with Goff's contract? Holmes is playing chess while the rest of the GMs are playing checkers. Dallas still has to pay Dak and CD, and the 49ers have to pay Purdy and Ayuk. These combined contracts will for sure be greater than Goff and St. Brown. If we were going to pay Goff, though, I would argue maybe we should have extended him last year. That would have saved us a little bit of money, correct? So I kind of like that one.
Yeah, it would have saved us a little bit of money, but you have to look at it realistically too. So Goff has only been averaging about $32 million a year.
Yep.
If you would have extended him last year, which I was open to, I thought that he was deserving of a contract, but he would have been paid more. So you would have went from 32 million that he got paid last year to potentially more money. And this year, 32 million, if his contract doesn't change, if they do a true extension and they play out his final year of his contract and start the extension in 25, he would have made more money this year, which would again limited our ability to do what we've done this offseason.
Yeah. All right. And the next one is, so the next good player that walks because of no money, you know who to blame. Despite what Goff says about, it's not up to me. It was completely 100% up to him. Holmes is drafting well, and re-signing those good players coming onto their first real contracts will be expensive. The rhetoric of the salary cap isn't real. It's false rhetoric. Math is math. The bill comes due eventually. You can't push those cap hits out to the future forever. We'd better hope Holmes can keep drafting magically to replace these guys. He can't resign due to the math.
So there was Tracy just said there was some more schedule leaks.
Ooh.
And so the 49ers are taking on the Jets. So it looks like my source gave me the wrong damn games. Well, the whole thing was primetime. So having 5 primetime games was all it. He was feeding me a little tidbits. Oh, I said I wasn't supposed to do that. Interesting. We'll see if they reign true. This will be the first time I've ever gotten a sourced info wrong, but we'll see how it goes. All right, keep rolling. Keep going.
All right, let's see. This is another one. They have 26 million still in cap space. Well, that's incorrect. Next year it goes up to $80 million in cap space, and 2026 they'll have 180 million in cap space. Plus the cap goes up every year. So I think a few of those numbers are a little skewed.
Yeah, a few of those numbers won't be right until we know what the contract details are. But they are right about one thing, and that's the contract or the cap goes up. I mean, it's supposed to be 280 million in 25. So you're talking another $25 million bump, which when you look at Goff's contract this past year, was a $30 million bump. You had a $25 million bump next year. His contract is now a net zero.
Yep. And
you know what I mean?
I'm thinking that the cap is going to go up way more than they even think, because you have companies like Netflix trying to get the Christmas games, and they're trying to get them to pay $500 million for 2 games on Christmas Day. And that was what pushed the schedule release, because it was originally scheduled for the 9th and then the 12th, and now it's the 15th. And it's all due to them negotiating with Netflix for the Christmas games, I guess.
Yeah. Yep.
All right. So here's our next one. It is not unrealistic to think Goff should take a pay cut unless we take into account, would you take less money at your job to put a better product out there so the owners where you work can profit more? I never heard one person complain when they gave all that money to Amon-Ra. To be honest with these people, 2 guys is easier to replace. I didn't understand that last sentence, but
yeah, I didn't read that one again. I didn't read that one again.
So is it unrealistic to think that Goff should have taken a pay cut, given the team a friendly deal? Would you take less money at your job to put a better product out on the field for your bosses to make more money? Okay. I wouldn't take a pay cut at my job just so my bosses can make more money.
Well, didn't I make the analogy with electricians the other day? I said that, if you feel like you're worth $100 an hour, you want $100 an hour. Do you want to pay an electrician $50 an hour because you feel like you're saving money? but when you flip the light switch on, it doesn't work, because that might be what you're going to get when you try to save money, right? Do you want half a good a quarterback as Jared Goff, or do you want Jared Goff? I don't think what he makes is going to make a difference to what his play is on the field. I think that people just make that comparison for whatever reason. I don't think the money has anything to do with how these players play on the field, or if they're going to lay down and not work as hard because now they're, fat and rich. I think that they have more to prove now. And I don't think that Brad Holmes is going to pay these guys and think that, I don't think the team is going to let them lay down. They're going to be held to a higher standard. These are leaders of men here on this team. But to go on about that statement there, no, I wouldn't take a pay cut so that my boss could be happy or the owner of a company could be happy. Absolutely not. I think that you are what you are. You're worth what you're worth, and you deserve every penny that you're going to get paid. If they didn't pay Jared Goff that money, they're going to pay somebody that money. So why not get paid the money? I mean, it is what it is.
And they have to spend 90% of that money every year. They have to. They're forced to. It's just
they have to spend a minimum of all but 10% of the cap every year.
Yeah. So here's a couple last ones. I hope he gives Ben Johnson some of that, so Ben Johnson stays longer. And then now let's win the Super Bowl 2025. Go Lions. That's what I'm saying.
So hold on. They said something about Ben Johnson's contract?
Yeah, so this is a fan talking.
Yep.
I hope that Jared Goff gives Ben Johnson some of that money so he'll stay longer.
Oh, I got you. I just hope people understand that coaches' contracts and salaries are not included in the cap. That's overhead. That is not part of NFL contract or cap, I should say. It's not part of the NFL cap per team.
Yeah, I think it's just a fan wanting him to stay is all.
You have any more?
Nope. I think that's it for right now.
Awesome, man. So obviously a little bit all over the place.
Yeah.
Here's what I would say. The Lions are doing the right thing. I think for once we really just need to trust what they're doing. They have not proven, to make bad decisions. I mean, you might not get every single pick that works out. You may not get every free agent that works out, but please tell me what team is 100%. Not one. If there's a team that is close to 100% spot on with all of their decisions, I would say it's the Detroit Lions. Brad Holmes has completely knocked it out of the park multiple times now, 4 in the draft, right? The guys that he's brought in free agency have done well, minus Cam Sutton. That was an utter failure. But I guess Emmanuel Mosley was kind of a failure. CJ Gardner was kind of a failure, but injury related. So you can't attribute that to Brad Holmes. Emmanuel Mosley, I think you could, because he was coming into the team with an injury. I hate bringing in players like that with injuries.
But it was a new injury.
Yeah, it was a new injury, but it's the same exact injury. And the way that I look at it is when you're rehabbing one, the other one is supposed to get extremely strong, but you're overworking it.
Yeah.
And if you overwork the other side, it weakens it. I mean, like last night, dude, I was, my hamstrings were locking up all night because, literally locking up because of I lifted over 16,000 pounds yesterday, and, I don't do that every day. So I overworked myself, and, here my ligaments and stuff are locking up on me.
But that stuff can happen anytime. Look at the guy in the Super Bowl. He jumped up because of that play.
Yep.
Went to run on the field and tore his Achilles. I mean,
the DeAndre Levy, the DeAndre Levy
doing the belt. Yeah, doing the belt. Yeah. Oh God.
Only the Lions could pull something off like that. Well, no, it just happened.
Yeah. Oh God, I hated that.
All right, so I queued up a little video from last night, bringing in Paul Orzetti. Last night, I wanted to just kind of replay a little bit of the opening statement that he made on Giovani Manu. Look at my face. I'm ready. Here we go. So Manu, born and raised on the South Pacific island of Tonga, which obviously I said earlier, very near to Samoa, which is Penei Sewell's hometown. At 11 years old, Manu and his 2 siblings, along with their mother, moved to Vancouver, Canada, or somewhere in that area, as reported online. But Manu was a rugby player in Tonga and then suited up for 5 seasons at the University of British Columbia. 6'7", 352 pounds. Not sure if he was that size when he first walked in, but he is now. Was a relative unknown before impressing at his pro day, and then became the first football player taken in the NFL draft from the University of British Columbia. So the Lions, I mean, they believe Manu is loaded with untapped potential. Traded a 3rd-round pick to pick him up this year in the draft. Overall, 126 in the 4th round. So my first question is, were you surprised that Manu was selected to the Lions at pick 126? Why or why not? And what are the Lions getting with the person and the player in Giovani Manu, in your opinion?
Yeah, surprised, but not surprised. I mean, certainly I feel that's probably where he belongs in terms of where he was selected. If you know him, he's just an incredible human being, number one, starting. So the Lions are getting a really good person, an extremely humble and respectful person. So those are some of the best things I can say about him. But on the field, he's a sponge. He's a student of the game. I left UBC when he was just starting his career. He was actually redshirting for us in his first year. My observations of him were always that really a polite young man, gentle giant. He was smaller than he was only 6'7", 290. So he was just a little guy. He was just a little guy when we had him. And but he, you could tell that he saw, an opportunity and he was hungry. He had all the intangibles, right? The hard work, desire, and again, just I think part of coming from where he came from, and actually I think I could be mistaken on this, but I'm pretty sure when he left Tonga, he actually came with his sister and moved in with his aunt, and I think his mom and dad both stayed in Tonga. So it was sort of a separation from the core family to get a better opportunity, and I think that probably had a massive impact on the things he wanted to become. I'm sure, quite certain, he would have been an incredible individual in whatever field he went into, but he just happened to be an enormous human being and got in. And he was actually, when I first saw him on the recruiting trail, I knew he had a basketball background as well. And there was some talk or consideration that basketball might be his future. And of course, it's 6'7". Why wouldn't it be, right? But, you sort of project, knowing what you know about NFL linemen and even CFL linemen, some length to them that they can be pretty incredible, especially if they have good feet and can move. So, he's one of those guys entirely a projection when we first saw him, and wow, is he ever, and I'll say this, he's had some great coaching at UBC, but I give Giovani the entire credit for everything he's accomplished. I mean, he's where he is now because of who he is and how hard he's worked to get there.
All right. Let me get this off the screen real quick. So his initial opening statement about Gio, number one, the fact that Giovani Manu, obviously he's credited with everything that he's had to do to make it this far. But I want you guys to put this in your head for just a moment. 11 years old, you displace yourself from your family. You move to a different country. You were living with your sibling and your aunt. People that you probably haven't spent a ton of time with, being the aunt in Vancouver. I think that she was already there. How would you be able to navigate life, being such a young kid, and displaced away from your family and everything that you knew, your culture? I mean, everything that you knew growing up is now gone, and you don't have that big time support system behind you. And then now you're 2 years old or whatever, and you are the 126th player selected in the NFL draft. But based on what Paul had mentioned last night, I mean, Giovani Manu is a very rare athletic gift, number one. And number two, the fact that, he is the one that has put himself in this position. He has worked incredibly hard to put himself in this position. And the fact that he was selected to the Detroit Lions couldn't be a better situation. And Paul went on to mention that last night as well, that the situation that he's walking into behind an all-pro, Pro Bowl type offensive line, top offensive line in the league, is only going to allow Manu to grow quicker and get better faster. And one of the statements that I made about Manu, not only was he surprised that he was taken, that early, and his answer was he really wasn't. He believes that, he felt that he was where he belonged in that draft. So I think that also speaks volumes that this wasn't a reach by Brad Holmes. And coming from, Canada, where Paul is, and watching these players progress, he's going to be the type of individual that's going to be able to give us a very good perspective on these players and how well they project at the next level. I did try to ask him some questions last night about him transitioning to guard and, how is he going to manifest in his career at the pro level? He did answer a lot of those questions as we went through the evening. And I would just suggest, if you guys haven't taken, any time yet to go through that episode, if you want to learn a lot about Giovani Manu, this is the episode that is going to help you learn a ton, not only from someone that recruited Gio, but somebody that was there during his first season. And then obviously from afar, watching Giovani Manu grow and develop into the human and football player that he is today. So what were your key takeaways last night, Eric? I know you had a chance to re-listen to it. What were your key takeaways about Manu last night?
My biggest takeaway was what Paul said about how long he thinks it's going to take Manu to acclimate to the NFL and be starter quality. He said 2 to 3 seasons. So sitting behind Penei Sewell for a season, learning, being a sponge, maybe getting some playing time in year 2. And once he gets that playing time, even if it's in a rotational role or just in for somebody that's injured, once he gets it, he's not going to let it go. And that's what I like to hear, that a player, once they're given an opportunity, they take it and run with the ball. They don't give it back. I love that.
Yeah, I think that some breaking news here about Sheila Ford Hamp. Hold on here.
What? That's not real.
Yeah, Will Scott, where's this coming from?
Yeah, that's one of them fake things on Facebook. My phone would be blowing up.
I don't see anything. One second. Quick pause here. I'll be back in like 45 seconds. Okay, so I haven't seen anything.
Yeah.
I mean, I've looked everywhere where it would be, and
Yep.
I don't
That's
see anything from. Yeah, I don't see anything from Adam Schefter or Mike Garafolo or anybody. So, yeah, be careful what you post. Definitely be careful what you read. Unless this is accurate, and comes from credible sources. Be very, very, very careful. There's a lot of stuff, and I said this the other day, especially in an election year. There is so much fake crap all over the place, but there's a lot of accounts out of Nigeria and McCurdy and everywhere else that all they do is post fake stuff, and they're winning because people are believing in it. And the people that constantly claim fake news, source this, source that, and are 1,000% wrong every single time. Those are the people you have to be careful of, and that's what keeps happening. So we'll move on from that.
I'm gonna tell you something, Will. My heart sank.
Oh yeah. That's why I wanted to pause for a minute and actually look.
I'm like shaking right now. That would have really hurt me had that really happened. I've never felt that way about an owner before. I didn't get upset when William Clay Ford died, but if Sheila Hamp had something had happened to her, holy crap, I really think I would have felt it. The feels for real.
Yeah, she's definitely left a pretty solid mark on the NFL. And still doing it. I mean, she's one of the best owners in the league, and has definitely transformed this team. So yeah, that would be crazy. So one of my statements last night came from Giovani Manu's press release the other day and his media availability, and I think this just exudes really who Manu really is. When he had this to say, he said, "One thing about me is I refuse to get outworked by my peers and my opponents. That's one thing I carry myself, because the way I look at it is if someone outworks me, it stops me from feeding my family. And my family means everything to me. So if you're stopping me from feeding my family, that's just going to add more fuel to my fire. So that's just the way I approach this. The more and more I read, the more and more I learn about Giovani Manu, I can't say enough without, there's zero question of doubt here. This is a perfect pick for the Detroit Lions." And Paul Orazzetti last night had a very similar reaction, that Giovani Manu is in a perfect situation. Now, I will say this, just to keep things a buck, right? Paul Orazzetti is not, like, his first team is not the Detroit Lions. Now, that's, not a big deal. But when you compare what he's going to say about a player and the team that he lands on, I think that you can take it, with more honesty, right? He's being more honest and factual about the player and the situation that he is in, because he doesn't have any skin in the game here. He's a Tennessee Titan fan, I think he said. So that's where, you listen to guys like Paul Orazzetti speak to Giovani Manu and where he belongs in the NFL, and certainly had a lot of great things to say. But again, the simple fact that he's not a Detroit Lions fan, as his number one team. I mean, he's a big supporter of the Lions because they're so close to him. But and now he's got former players that he's recruited on the team. I think that spoke volumes to me about the level of information and honesty that he was sharing with us about a player. The other thing he mentioned last night was Mathieu Betts, and I was shocked. Like, I was really shocked to hear. And then he emails me about Mathieu Betts, that I should not sleep on Mathieu Betts, that none of us should. And he sent me some highlight reels and some tape on Mathieu Betts, which I'm going to review a little bit later today. But very exciting information about Mathieu Betts is that this guy's different. Like, he's bred different. What was your initial reaction when he was talking about Mathieu Betts last night? And kind of where is this going to end up? Like, I'm super excited now about camp.
Yeah. So remember yesterday's morning show, we went over Monday morning over under reactions, correct? And I picked one about Betts. Do you think he's going to make the 53-man roster? And do you think he gets more or less than 8 sacks? You picked the under. I'm the eternal optimist. I picked the over. So now I'm looking kind of good. This guy's giving me the inside track that maybe Betts is going to do something really awesome. So I like it. I'm glad I picked the over and not the under.
I don't remember what I picked. I think I picked the under. Did I pick the under? Was that for him to make the 53, or was that for him to
get 8 sacks or more?
I'll go with the under still on that. I think he'll be an impactful player, but 8 sacks is kind of a big deal. That's not easy to get in the NFL. Lee McNeil is probably one of the hardest workers in the game, and what do you have, 5 or 6 last year? So it's not easy. Only having a few sacks less than Hutchinson would be an incredible year. Exactly. But I'm hoping that Hutchinson really steps out this year and then has a great game. Look, I can't say it enough, man. This team is really starting to grow on me. I think that this team, 2024's team, is really starting to grow on me. I think that we have something special here. I think the sky's the limit for this team here in 2024. And now hearing, about some of the guys that are joining this team this year, that there's a lot of optimism to be shared here. And I believe that as we watch this season unfold, a couple of these players just might shock us a little bit. I know I say that often, but I really believe it here for Giovani Manu. He may not get, a ton of snaps this year, but the one thing that Paul did say last night, and you kind of spoke to it, is he believes that Manu in his second season could get regular snaps. And of course, you can listen to that on Rocked On Podcast Network. Last night's live stream started around 7:40 p.m. Check it out. It was May 13th, live with Paul Orazzetti, and just kind of listen to what he had to say. But it kind of lined up for me. And my response to that was, okay, Zeitler is only under a 1-year deal. He's definitely not going to crack the roster, for Penei Sewell. So if he was going to play tackle, it would have to be in place of Taylor Decker. Well, if they're talking contract, extension with Taylor Decker, that's not going to happen. That's why it's been said multiple times by, Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell and everybody else that Manu is going to get a lot of right guard looks in training camp. I think at rookie camp, he had some tackle looks, but he's going to be cross-trained at tackle and guard and be ready to step in where needed, when needed. Tony last night was a little bit concerned about our offensive line depth. I'm not as concerned now that we've added a couple of guys like Mahogany. And for some reason, I thought Mahogany was a guard, but or a tackle, but he's also a guard. So we have really good guard depth behind us right now. And if Manu steps in and is able to get, solid snap play this preseason at right guard, I think he's going to be pretty impressive. Paul Orazzetti mentioned his length, his strength. He's nimble. I mean, he's aggressive. He's light on his feet for a big man. I mean, at 6'7", 350 plus pounds is a big human. You compare him to the size of Joe Alt. I mean, it's in the same realm, right? Joe Alt's like 6'8", 350. Manu's 6'7", 350. So we got one of the bigger, tackle guards in the draft. Excited to see what he does at right guard, because if Zeitler is not extended next year, if he's not offered another contract, that could be where Manu fits in right away by year 2, getting regular snaps. So his progression through the league early could be sooner than we think. It could be next year. Is he going to outplay Colby Sorsdahl and Coyote Awosika? I hope so. Colby's got a big step to make this year. I wasn't real impressed with his play last year, but he was a rookie. And, he's a young rookie. He came from a smaller school, so he just needed more time on task. So we'll see what happens. Anything else you want to add to that about my 2 bets or anything else?
Well, I was comparing bets to William the Refrigerator Perry last night. I just looked at
Manu.
Oh yeah, Manu. And I was comparing the two, right? Well, the Fridge, he was 6'2", 335 pounds. And it doesn't say what he ran in a combine or anything, but I'm telling you, he wasn't as fast as Manu. I could really see a day where Manu scores a touchdown. Wouldn't that be incredible?
Yeah, I mean, it would be. I don't think it's going to happen, but I was a little miffed at you comparing Manu to the Fridge, because Perry was a defensive tackle.
Oh yeah,
right?
he was a defensive tackle. Yeah, I forgot.
Yeah,
but do you remember
was
back in the 80s when he came in for like a play on offense and ran the ball? He was just so huge compared to everybody else.
Yeah, it was a goal. It was a goal line. It was a goal line stance. Yeah,
2, 335. This guy's almost 6'8", 350. That's just a huge human being. I can't even wrap my head around how big he is.
Well, we'll find out this summer at training camp. I hope to get a lot of opportunity to watch these guys this summer. So, what was the rest of my questions for today here? The rest of the topics. Let me just pull it up. So we also talked about the fact that Theo Benedette out of UBC as well. I missed this during the draft. So the Bears also picked up a Canadian offensive lineman who is the JP Metros Trophy winner, not 1, but 2 seasons in a row. And according to Paul, I mean, this guy's a pretty good player. I did not realize that the Bears picked up this guy. So I queued up a video this morning. I know this is not typical Lions, conversation, but as we get going through the season, obviously we will be covering the NFC North and in more of what's going on within the NFC North and how it pertains to the Detroit Lions. So let's take a look at Theo Benedette's highlight film here, and I'll probably have to cut it out later, but let's take a look at it right now. I don't know why there's zero audio to this, but I don't think there was. That play back there was just not even fair to that kid. Totally bulldozed him. Actually, I think it's right here. Yeah, good night. So looks like a pretty good athlete. Definitely has a good first step. Gets himself in position. He's very quick, laterally. Obviously, as a tackle, you need to be. Gets up into that second, third level pretty easily too when he's pulling.
That Canadian field looks so strange.
Yeah, it's wider, man. It's crazy.
And longer.
That's one thing that we didn't get a chance to talk about last night with Stiggers and some of the other cornerbacks.
Yeah, because Stiggers went to what, Philadelphia?
I think so. That's the thing about these Canadian football corners and safeties is they have a much harder job with the field being so wide.
Yeah, and they're more of a passing league. Like Paul was saying, the running backs don't get much of a chance in the Canadian Football League.
Well, and there's an extra wide receiver on the field as well. So anyway, I'll probably have to cut that out, but I just wanted to kind of give you guys a glimpse at another Canadian football player in his ability. To be honest with you, when I compared tape between Manu and then looking at Theo this morning, man, I still think that Manu's probably better, even though he won the JP Metros trophy a couple of seasons. I still would say that Manu, holds the edge here. I mean, especially size wise. Be interesting to see what happens. So this morning, let me look at the chat one more time before we take off. Obviously, we didn't get to a lot of the chat this morning. Rick says Taylor Decker will either retire, switch to right tackle before he plays for another team. He's a Lion. I don't see him taking over for Penei Sewell, but I think Taylor probably will get extended. There were some early conversations about this early in the spring. Maybe he gets extended, which leaves Manu at, right or left guard, wherever he gets an opportunity. Obviously, Graham Glasgow left guard for the next 3 seasons, or at least through 2026 season. He's going to have to find a way to get on the field, right? I think that's the case here. He's going to have to find a way to get on the field. But I do believe that Taylor Decker retires a Lion. I think that's a given. I just don't see these guys, Frank Ragnow, Taylor, I just don't see him wanting to play for another team. Zachary Cleary says Betts is literally a really good diamond in the rough. He really is. I think that his ability on field is highly unknown at this point. Like, we just don't know what he's going to be able to do on a shrunken field, number one, up against, all pro type right or left tackles. But he's going to have the best offensive line to go up against. I mean, just think about how good Betts could potentially be after a summer of going up against Penei Sewell and Taylor Decker. I think it's going to be fun to watch, and see where he grows. All right. Any final comments from you this morning?
Not really. This has been a whirlwind last 24 hours. Just to let everybody know, Goff is my favorite player. You know, he wasn't when he first got here. My favorite player was Matt Stafford before that. And now it's Goff. I think with this signing and the pickup of Hooker in the draft, we have quality at quarterback, something we haven't had in forever. A very competent, hopefully very competent backup quarterback. And then just like you were just talking about, all the stuff on the O-line, we also brought in this Mahogany kid. Look at all that depth we're going to have. It's not going to be, these third, fourth rate offensive linemen coming in behind them. I think we're building depth on the O-line, depth in the quarterback room, and it's fantastic. Something I don't think the Lions have ever really had, because we're going to face an injury here and there. And now I'm not going to be so worried if something happens to one of our main guys, because the guy behind them is going to be competent and be able to come in without skipping a beat, win a game. I am so confident this year in the Lions, and I love it. I've never had this confidence in the Lions ever in my lifetime.
Confidence is great to have. I think that, the way that Brad Holmes has built this team, we watched the progression since season one. I think that the draft in 2021, it lended, to the Lions, building the depth, from that first season. And I guess when you look at the way that Brad Holmes has, really not only just open up the wallet recently, but the way that he's kind of developed this team from 2021's draft has been all about depth. And he says that consistently, right? That you're only as good as your depth. And when we look back at the 2021 draft, let me open this up real quick. So we had obviously Penei Sewell, who was our first overall pick. Obviously it was a slam dunk. Just extended to a massive contract. Levi Onwuzurike hasn't panned out. Second round guy just hasn't panned out yet. Third round guy, Aleem McNeil, been one of the better defensive tackles in the league. Currently rated in the top 20 in the NFL as a defensive tackle. And then Ifeatu Melifonwu, again, a third round pick, somebody that has taken a little bit to kind of make it. In last year was his best season as a safety. He's shown glimpses in the past, has battled injury his entire career. And I think that this is the year where we finally see who Ifeatu Melifonwu is. Is he going to make that next step forward and become a better safety? We'll see this year. And I mean, this is the defining year for him. This is the end of the road if he doesn't put it together. The Lions have not done a ton with securing more safety depth. I would say that that's probably an area of concern as far as, maybe we're a little thin there with future depth with Sion Vaki. I think that there's opportunity, obviously, for him to step in and play safety, but maybe not as much, this season, but we'll see him in some sub packages for sure. And then fourth round pick, Amon-Ra St. Brown, another slam dunk by Brad Holmes. So 3 picks in the first 4 rounds have been big time contributors for the Detroit Lions. And then as far as depth with Ifeatu Melifonwu, he was a depth player up until this last season. And then Derek Barnes finally started to kind of put it together last year. So again, this is another season for him to really put it all out on the line and show us what he has, right? And then Jamar Jefferson, our 7th round pick, never really worked out. It's been kind of bouncing around through practice squads. So if I look at 2021's draft, you had 3 players that really stood out. Penei Sewell, Aleem McNeil, Amon-Ra St. Brown, 2 of which have been extended. So that's a win-win-win right there. Levi Onwuzurike, he's a good depth guy, has not proven himself to be a starter. Derek Barnes has always been a great depth guy, solid, in special teams, but this is a prove it year. But, you look at this draft and now you have 3 guys this year that are really great depth pieces, with one being a starter outside of the guys that are starters in Penei Sewell Ali McNeil and Amon-Ra St. Brown. So when you look back at 2021's draft, I think that what you look back and you say now is Brad Holmes had a vision. His vision was securing 3 positions right away: offensive tackle, defensive tackle, and a wide receiver that, I don't think anybody knew who Amon-Ra St. Brown really was going to be. I can't say that Brad Holmes even knew who Amon-Ra St. Brown was going to be, but he definitely picked the right player at the right position. So when you look back at 2021's draft, Eric, I mean, what's your overall consensus about how Brad Holmes started the future for this team?
Epic. Absolutely epic. The guy knocked it out of the park. We still retain the rights to all of the draft picks from the first draft. We've only had one person in 4 drafts leave the Lions, and that was Chase Lucas, went to the 49ers. And that tells you something, because every GM we had before Brad Holmes, after 1 or 2 seasons, we would be releasing players or letting them go to other teams or cutting them. And it never made any sense to me. And their hit rate was so low for all the other GMs. Even the GMs that I thought were doing halfway decent never really did. At first I thought Bob Quinn was going to be the savior to the Lions and be able to draft great players. And, a couple of them did work out, because, I mean, look at Frank Ragnow, and I can't remember if he picked Decker or not, but listen, those are a couple of the outliers compared to everything else. Because if you look back, what is it, 90-something% of our roster got changed in the first 2 years. And we can't live like that anymore. And Brad Holmes keeps hitting these out of the park. And that first draft was so epic, I don't think he can ever outdo it, but he might have done it this year. We got to see about these 2 cornerbacks. See what happens with Manu.
I would say last year's draft is by far his best. So when you look at 2022's draft, Aiden Hutchinson, first round, Jameson Williams, first round. Obviously, J-Mo's still finding his way. Solid depth piece. Aiden Hutchinson has been one of the better defensive ends as far as pressures. He's done, pretty well with the sack rate, but as far as finishing, I think that there's some polishing that Aiden still needs, and he'll get there. Second round pick Josh Paschal hasn't worked out. Third round pick Kirby Joseph, he's been okay. I would say average as a safety. He's had glimpses, but I don't think that we judge players on, a glimpse, a spurt, if you will, in their career. We look for consistency, right? We want to see what they're doing game in and game out, year in and year out. And Kirby's kind of been, up and down a little bit. James Mitchell definitely hasn't worked out, tight end in the 5th round, but Malcolm Rodriguez, so immediately got playing time. And I think part of that was because we really didn't have a linebacker room, but he also worked his way onto the field because he was so football intelligent that you couldn't keep him off the field. Like Calvin Shepard said during one of the episodes there, of Hard Knocks, that Malcolm was outworking everybody in that room, even the veterans, and was always in the right position at the right time. He knew his assignment, and you cannot keep that guy off the field. That if he knows where he needs to be and he's making the plays, obviously it made a ton of sense to put him out there. Year 2, don't understand what happened. Clearly they brought in Jack Campbell. That lessened Malcolm Rodriguez's opportunity on the field. So again, he went from 22, bringing in a depth piece, because I think that's what they looked at Malcolm, was a depth piece, someone that was going to be, decent on special teams as well. And then in the future, obviously looking forward to that replacement, the number 1 guy that's going to be able to, take over the position for Malcolm and then have Malcolm in that backup role. James Houston, he was the star of that draft, later, right? Like he was the player that was cut, then brought back, and then, 7 games, 8 sacks, had a, crazy good season there in the second, I guess really the last third of the season, or last half of the season. And then Chase Lucas just never panned out, really never had any major playing time. So when I look at, from year 1 to year 2 of Brad Holmes on this team, in year 1, you identified 3 players that were going to be futures for your team, a couple of depth pieces. Year 2, Aiden Hutchinson is supposed to be the future of this team. Jamison Williams is supposed to be a future of this team. So far, one of them has worked out. One of them has not yet. Jamison still has a way to go. When you look at the depth pieces later on between the 2nd and 7th rounds, Josh Paschal was actually supposed to be a starter, and he just hasn't worked out yet. That's why we now have DJ Reader on this team, because Josh Paschal just hasn't been able to stay healthy. But he's also kind of a hybrid defensive end, defensive tackle, not really big enough to be a defensive tackle 100% of the time. Kirby Joseph was a depth piece. Back then we had more safeties on this roster, and he's kind of worked his way into being a starter, kind of by ways of players being let go this year. Tracy Walker is no longer. Obviously, CJ Gardner-Johnson is no longer. So Kirby has now got his opportunity to kind of prove it or lose it this year, and we'll see where that goes. James Mitchell, again, that was a depth piece. Didn't have a lot of tight end depth on this team. Was somebody that was taken because, there was more high risk, high reward coming off of a knee injury or ACL, whatever he had going on. Just hasn't shown the ability to really, play with consistency. Malcolm, clearly depth now. I view 2022 as a depth draft. Like, you've got one all-star, Aiden Hutchinson. Everybody else on that roster so far is really good depth. Moving on to 23, this was the best draft so far, in my opinion. You solidified 4 starters and an incredible backup to be Hendon Hooker, Jahmyr Gibbs, Jack Campbell, Sam Laporta, Brian Branch, clearly all starters on this team. This is by far the best draft for Brad Holmes. Broderick Martin, what many considered to be a reach, has completely transformed his body, this offseason. Really looking forward to seeing what he can do this year. I don't expect him, to be a starter in any capacity. He's a solid role player, rotational player. Tony said last night he actually expects Broderick Martin to be a starter at some point this season because he does not expect DJ Reader to stay healthy. That was kind of a hot take last night of, really? Like, he has no confidence in DJ Reader. And I hope that doesn't come to fruition. I hope the DJ stays on the field. Kobe Sorsdahl, depth piece, 5th round. Antoine Green, definitely a depth piece, but somebody that has the size, the speed, the ability. Proved it at North Carolina. He was Drake May's number 1 option, number 2 option on that offense. Definitely has the skill. And Antoine Randall L last season, even said that about Antoine Green, that when he plays with speed and he knows what he's supposed to be doing, which basically in certain words says he has to know the playbook. When he knows the playbook, the guy can play. And I think that we'll see a big leap from Antoine Green this year. I know that there's a lot of people out there that say, come on, 7th round pick. Hey, Monroe St. Brown was a 4th round pick. Things happen. It's all about development in this league, and the Lions have developed their players extremely well. So looking at 22 and 23, what do you see, from Brad Holmes here, Eric?
Yeah, like you said, more of depth piece in 22. You had Aiden and JMO. I expect huge things out of JMO this year. This is the year that JMO needs to get it together, get the entire route tree going, not just a slant now and then and go routes all day or fly routes. He needs to put everything in the book, get the comeback routes, everything going, because he has all the talent in the world, all the speed in the world. He could be super, super, super dangerous, but he has to earn that trust from Goff. I think he's finally starting to earn it. He came on in the playoffs. I would love to see playoff JMO for the rest of the time that he's here. And then the next year, now you're saying that year, last year, 2023 draft was the best, right? You have Gibbs,
1,000%.
Okay, so you have Gibbs, Laporta. Who are the other 2?
Campbell, Brian Branch, and Hooker.
So Campbell, Branch, and Hooker. Okay. How many of those 5 players do you believe are going to be Hall of Famers?
I think it's too early for any of that conversation.
But I believe that we have 2 Hall of Famers in Brad Holmes' first draft. The first one,
I think you have Penei Sewell. I don't think that Amon-Ra St. Brown is a Hall of Famer just yet. You got to remember that he's got to play at least 10. He's got to play at least 10 years in this league to even be considered a Hall of Famer without winning a Super Bowl. So unless the Lions win a Super Bowl while Amon-Ra St. Brown is part of this team, I don't think that he's in the conversation just yet. He's had some incredible years, incredible seasons, but so have other players. I mean, so anybody else that has had 1,500 yards a season, you'd have to say that they're Hall of Fame worthy. And I wouldn't say that that's really possible.
I just think as far as like Hall of Fame goes, those 2 have the highest potential of anyone that we have on the team right now to make the Hall of Fame.
After 3 years, after 3 years. So we have to look at that after 3 years.
Yeah,
I mean, that's how I would look at it. So when you look at what Sam Laporta did in his first season, that's hasn't been done but by 2 other players to play the tight end role. So he broke 50, 60-year-old records with what he did last year. So that immediately puts him in the Hall of Fame conversation, but now he has to maintain those types of numbers, those types of seasons. And if he does, you're going to put him in the conversation of Travis Kelce, George Kittle. He's better, should be better than Mark Andrews. But I mean, would we say that, all of those guys are Hall of Famers? Potentially. Kelce for sure, because he's won Super Bowls. George Kittle, he still needs to win a Super Bowl. He's been to plenty. They can't win one.
Yeah.
So I think when you look at what they did in their first season, I mean, it's hard for a running back these days. It's really hard for a running back. And I'm not going to judge, all of their play as, Hall of Fame worthy or not. To me, it's how they affected the team, positively, negatively. Did they help the team win? And when I say this was the best draft ever for for Brad Holmes so far, it's because Jahmyr Gibbs was one quarter of the offense. Sam Laporta was 1/4 of the offense. Jack Campbell had a decent season for a rookie. Brian Branch, best safety in the draft, one of the best safeties in the league last year. So when you look at first draft, that was the best year you're going to get so far. When you look at 2021, you had a right tackle. And then you had Amon-Ra St. Brown, who didn't do anything until the last six games of the season. So that's how I'm looking at the draft. First year impact. How did that draft help this team? And it clearly helped the team much more than any other draft did in its first season. So then we got this year. So this year we got a little bit of a mixed bag. Where did Brad Holmes go in his 4th season? We had, last season it was a mixture of starters and depth, but more starters in the first 4 rounds or first 4 picks. This year, you got a starter in Terrion Arnold, and then you also have a potential starter in Ennis Rakestraw by 2025. Giovani Manu could end up being a starting right guard by 2025. Sion Vaki could end up being, is a rotational safety, but definitely starting on special teams here in 2024. And then the Kai Wingos and the Christian Mahoganies of the draft, we just don't know. So when I look at this, I see, 2.5 depth pieces, 3 depth pieces with Manu, Wingo, and Mahogany, and 2.5 to 3 starters and, Arnold, Rakestraw, and Vaki. I just don't think the Vaki is going to get, any starting time right now on the defense. He's definitely going to have to earn it, but can he beat out Kirby Joseph? Maybe, we'll see. I look at this as future. You've got Terrion Arnold that's going to end up locking down that right or left cornerback spot at some point, and Ennis Rakestraw should join him by next year. Those are going to be the 2 to watch out of this draft. But we'll wait and see what happens this season, and then look back on it next year at this time to say how impactful was this draft for this season. And I really believe, this based on some of the UDFAs that we brought in, having the backfield finally solidified is going to propel this team to the next level. That was what we were missing last year. So what do you think about this year?
Yep, it takes more, and we just got more. I love the two corners that we picked, first and second round. I'm really falling in love with Rakestraw. Everything I watch about the kid, every interview he does, he has what I think is like the Amun-Ra little notebook with all the people that went before him. And he's got his little black book, all the things he wants to do and all the people he wants to prove wrong. Everybody doubted him. He doesn't believe there were 60 players better than him in the draft. And I wouldn't be surprised if the kid memorized all 60 players, And then the way Rakestraw and Arnold came into mini camp and they're already best friends and they have this camaraderie and they're including each other in interviews and they're throwing stuff back and forth with each other and they're goofing around. I love it. I've never seen two people come in on a draft like that basically are best friends at the same position and are going to help this team so much. If they can live up to their potential and both become starters within the next 2 years, my God, for the first time in my lifetime, the Lions will have a very competent backfield. It'll be so awesome. So awesome. I am so looking forward to this next season to see what happens. I can't wait for training camp, OTAs, all of it. I just want to see what these kids can do.
Yeah, I think that's it's a telling sign of the way that Brad Holmes tries to bring these players in, guys that are going to fit together. I think that there's more involved to this draft process than we really understand. Maybe when they're looking at these guys, they're like, well, how are they going to fit in the same room? Are their heads too big that they both can't walk through the doorway together? Or are these guys going to kind of, fall in brotherly love with each other and become good buddies, and really carry the room with that style of friendship? And I think, like you said, man, they kind of hit it out of the park day one. These guys are just, kind of goofs and having a good time, but serious about business at the same time. And darn good football players. Sorry. When I look back at all of the players that Amon-Ra St. Brown had to beat, tell me one wide receiver that was selected in 2021 that has a bigger contract than Amon-Ra St. Brown.
Nope, I don't think there is one.
There's not. Jamar Chase is the only other player in that draft that I think you could even hold a candle to Amon-Ra St. Brown's ability and what he's done on the field. And I think Jamar Chase is making like 21 million or something like that this year, with a 5th-year option. So he didn't even get a new contract. But that kind of goes back to what I was saying. Did we overpay? Could we have picked up the 5th year, couldn't have picked up a 5th year with Amon-Ra St. Brown, but could we have extended him, just slightly to kind of make him feel better about his paycheck and then commit to him later? But, the more I look at it, it was probably the right timing when you look at the other contracts that are, kind of falling into the funnel at this point for 2025 and beyond. So, all right, that's it for today's show. Rise and Grind morning show. A lot of great conversations, man. Last night, please check out the live show. You'll learn a lot about Matu Betts and, of course, Giovani Manu. It's been a big week already. Brad Holmes kicking it off Monday with a bang, signing Jared Goff to the 2nd richest quarterback contract in the NFL. And well-deserved. Very, very well-deserved. My last final question for everybody in the chat is, when you go look at the highest paid quarterbacks in the league right now, let me pull it up one more time. The top 10 highest paid quarterbacks in the league, with Jared Goff being number 2 on the list, is Joe Burrow, Jared Goff, Justin Herbert, Lamar Jackson, Jalen Hurts, Kyler Murray, Deshaun Watson, Kirk Cousins, Patrick Mahomes, and then Josh Allen. So looking at all of these players, here's a crazy stat. Kirk Cousins has thrown 270 TDs to 110 interceptions. He's also been, well, when did Kirk Cousins come into the league?
40 years ago.
Yeah, it seems like that, right? It seems like that.
Yeah.
Best quarterback to ever play for Michigan State, in my opinion.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I remember watching him at Michigan State. He was awesome.
So Kirk Cousins was drafted in what, 2012 by the Commanders? I think it was.
Yep.
So he's been in the league now for, this will be his, 14th season. So 13 seasons. He has literally more than 4 seasons on Jared Goff. So obviously his TD to interception rate is going to be a lot higher. Patrick Mahomes was drafted when? 15? 17. He was drafted in 17. And Jared Goff was drafted in 2016? So when I look at these numbers, Jared Goff has thrown 185 touchdowns to 82 interceptions. He's been to 1 Super Bowl. And on this list, the top 10 list, Josh Allen, never been to a Super Bowl. Kirk Cousins, never been to a Super Bowl. Deshaun Watson, never been to a Super Bowl. Kyler Murray, never been to a Super Bowl. Lamar Jackson, Justin Herbert, never been to a Super Bowl. The only players on this list that have ever been to a Super Bowl, Joe Burrow, Jared Goff, Jalen Hurts, and of course, Patrick Mahomes is 3-1 in his Super Bowls. So in my opinion, those are your top 5 quarterbacks in the league based on their record, based on TD to interception ratio, overall, quarterback rating. Jared Goff is a 93.6. He has a mid-tier quarterback rating. In the playoffs, he's 4-4. Joe Burrow's 5-2. Herbert is 0-1. Lamar Jackson is 2-4. Jalen Hurts is 2-3. Kyler Murray is 0-1. Deshaun Watson is a waste of space at 1-2. Kirk Cousins is 1-3. I can't stand Deshaun Watson. Yeah. Patrick Mahomes, 15-3. Well deserved of the biggest contract in the NFL, which I'm sure he'll get at some point. They kind of extend him, renegotiate every couple of years. Josh Allen is 5-5. So I think the closest quarterback that you could compare Jared Goff to record-wise is Josh Allen. Goff at 4-4, Josh Allen at 5-5, with a 92.2 quarterback rating. Jared Goff, 93.6 quarterback rating, 185 to 82 TD to interceptions. Josh Allen, only 167 to 78 TD to interception rate. So does Jared Goff belong? 1,000%. When you look at stats, they give you part of the picture, right? It tells a story of how good this quarterback is statistically. Now, the on-field play obviously is a whole nother metric, and it's something that we're continually evaluating every single season. Did he get better? Did he get worse? What were the weapons around him? Did he have enough on this team? Was the defense helping or hurting, the offense? Because believe it or not, it does hurt the offense when the defense can't stop the other offense. And that's what Jared Goff has gone up against since 2021. The defense has just not been able to stop, the opposing. And last year, the defense finally started to get a little bit better. And for any team to have an opportunity to win games, your defense has to keep teams under 20 points. We're getting closer. I think last year, the Lions defense was somewhere around 23.5 points per game allowed. Don't quote me. I'm just going off memory, but they definitely improved over 2022, which they were like 25.7 points per game. Again, don't quote me, going off memory. But it was close. In the fact that we were only a 1-point lead over points scored per game in 2022 tells you a much bigger story. And that's why stats are so important. And that's why I pay attention to the analytics and the stats and the metrics and the KPIs and everything else about this game of football, because it means a lot. That's the kind of information you're going to get here, especially during the season. We'll have some special Monday morning talk shows coming up here soon. I want to get back into Lions Legends. Like I've been saying, we're in the lull period. So we'll be highlighting some of the Lions Legends that I did last year when this channel was a nothing burger. So now we're going to do it again so you guys can hear all of the work that I prepared on some of these Lions legends, and let's have a conversation about our history. All right, that's it for me today, Eric. Hope you have a wonderful day. Anything you want to send these Lions fans off with today?
No, wish me luck later today. I get to shoot with the Netflix series at 1 p.m. today. So we'll see what happens.
Awesome. What time do I have to be on?
What do you mean?
I didn't get my invite.
Oh, yeah. I forgot, man. It's in the mail.
No, I see how I see how it is.
I gotta see what dude, this is totally unknown to me. So like I have no clue what I'm gonna be doing. I have no clue what they want from me. I don't think they knew, because at first they just wanted me to be like an eyewitness kind of thing, and then they wanted me to be maybe a regular or a professional on the show, and then they were like asking me about possibly being a co-host. So I don't know. If something happens, great. If it doesn't, no skin off my back.
Well,
so
I have a really good story. I don't know if I ever told you this story. I'll tell you off air, but if they want to hear a really good story.
Yeah, you told me your story.
Did I tell you the whole story?
Yeah.
About getting paced in the woods?
Yep.
So yeah, if they want to hear an incredible story, man, that freaked me out. Thankfully I had, I was hunting season. Let's just put it that way. Thankfully I had protection. So, all right, you guys enjoy. Go for it.
It's going to be focused all on the Upper Peninsula and why there's certain things happening up here and not other places so much. What makes the UP so weird, strange, paranormal? Yeah.
Yeah. The deep, dark, and mysterious, right?
Yeah. Well, 3% of Michigan's population is in the Upper Peninsula. 97% of it's downstate in the Lower Peninsula. So when there's no people, strange things happen.
Yeah, strange things happen. There's also some military sites up there too. So even more weird stuff probably goes on. But all right, you guys, enjoy your Tuesday. What is Brad Holmes going to come out with next? We'll find out, but schedule release coming soon. So far, it looks like my leak has not worked out to my favor. Primetime games is all I cared about. So we'll see what happens. You guys have a wonderful Tuesday. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Take care. Bye-bye.